You're listening to the N2K Space Network.
AI agents are now reading sensitive data, executing actions, and making decisions across our environments. But are we managing their access safely? Join Dave Bittner and Barak Shalef from Oasis Security on Wednesday, December 3rd at 1 p.m. Eastern for a live discussion on agentic access management and how to secure non-human identities without slowing innovation. Can't make it live? Register now to get on-demand access after the event. Visit events.thecyberwire.com. That's events with an s.thecyberwire.com to save your spot.
From phishing to ransomware, cyber threats are constant. But with NordLayer, your defense can be too. NordLayer brings together secure access and advanced threat protection in a single, seamless platform. It helps your team spot suspicious activity before it becomes a problem by blocking malicious links and scanning downloads in real time, preventing malware from reaching your network. It's quick to deploy, easy to scale, and built on zero-trust principles, so only the right people get access to the right resources. Get 28% off on a yearly plan at nordlayer.com/cyberwiredaily with code cyberwire-28. That's nordlayer.com/cyberwiredaily, code cyberwire-28. That's valid through December 10th, 2025.
Today is November 25th, 2025. I'm Maria Varmazis, and this is T-Minus.
T-minus 20 seconds to LOS T-Drift. Go for deploy. Roger, roll.
The European Space Agency has shortlisted Spaceport Cornwall and Machrihanish in the UK as testing locations for its hypersonic test platform Invictus. Blue Origin has announced an agreement with Optimum Technologies to integrate its carousel optical payload on board the first mission of Blue Ring. The U.S. Space Force has awarded multiple small contracts to develop prototypes for space-based interceptors. NASA has reduced the number of astronaut missions on Boeing's Starliner contract and said the spacecraft's next mission to the International Space Station will fly without a crew. China has docked an uncrewed Shenzhou spacecraft with Tiangong Space Station, which will return the crew currently on orbit in April 2026. And today I have my monthly catch-up with Greg Gillinger, SVP for Strategy and Development at Integrity ISR, to find out the latest news on what's going on in orbit. What movements are we seeing with Chinese spacecraft, and what is the latest spacecraft that they have sent to orbit? Find out more along with me after today's intelligence briefing. Thank you for joining me on this Tuesday. Let's dive into our intel briefing, shall we? And we're kicking off today's updates with good news from China, and especially for the 3 crewmates on Tiangong Space Station. China launched an unmanned Shenzhou 22 spacecraft on a Long March 2F rocket from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China at 2:11 p.m. local time. According to Chinese media, the spacecraft then docked with China's Tiangong Space Station at 3:50 p.m. It now means that the crew on Tiangong, which were left without a flight-worthy spacecraft for 11 days, now have a safe return vehicle. And it all has been a cause of concern for the international space community after the Shenzhou 20 spacecraft, which was due to return a crew 2 weeks ago, was deemed unsafe for use. The crew instead used the Shenzhou 21 capsule to return to Earth, leaving the Shenzhou 21 crew without a return vessel. It is still unclear what will happen to the damaged Shenzhou 20 spacecraft, which does remain docked to Tiangong. Shenzhou 22 carried medical supplies, spare parts for Tiangong, and equipment which they hope can be used to repair the window crack on Shenzhou 20. The Shenzhou 22 spacecraft will remain docked until about April 2026, when it will be used to transport the crew of the Shenzhou 21 back to Earth. And while China celebrates their good news, Boeing is dealing sadly with a new blow. NASA has reduced the number of astronaut missions on Boeing's Starliner contract and said that the spacecraft's next mission to the International Space Station will fly without a crew. Boeing's contract under NASA's Commercial Crew Program, which was awarded back in 2014, included 6 post-certification operational flights carrying astronauts to and from the ISS. Well, the latest modification reduces the number of Starliner flights to 4, including up to 3 astronaut flights and an uncrewed flight in April next year. The next Starliner flight, known as Starliner 1, will be used by NASA to deliver necessary cargo to the orbital lab and allow in-flight validation of the system upgrades that were implemented following the crew flight test mission last year. NASA says 2 additional flights are optional. The U.S. Space Force has awarded multiple small contracts to develop prototypes for space-based interceptors. The contracts were awarded to unidentified companies and were under $9 million each and fall below defense contract regulation thresholds for detailed disclosure. The awards were issued using a streamlined acquisition tool known as Other Transaction Authority, or good old OTAs. It is believed that they formed the initial work for the proposed U.S. Golden Dome space-based defense infrastructure. Blue Origin has announced an agreement with Optimum Technologies, or Optech, to integrate its Carousel optical payload on board the first mission of Blue Ring. And just a reminder, Blue Ring is Blue Origin's highly maneuverable multi-mission spacecraft for payload delivery, hosting, and infrastructure services. Optech's Carousel sensor is designed to provide actionable insights on space objects and orbital activity, and includes onboard image storage, object detection algorithms, and passive thermal control. The payload is designed to operate flexibly across dynamic orbits over a year-long mission profile. Carousel will fly with Scout Space's OWL sensor, along with internally developed payloads, all demonstrating Blue Ring as the ideal platform for supporting future GEO space domain awareness missions. Blue Ring's first mission is expected to launch in 2026, with initial injection into geostationary transfer orbit and additional services performed in geostationary orbit. The European Space Agency has shortlisted Spaceport Cornwall and Scotland's Machrihanish as testing locations for Invictus. And Invictus is ESA's research program aimed at developing Europe's new hypersonic test platform. The program is designed to de-risk critical innovations such as advanced propulsion, thermal protection, and guidance systems by testing them under real-world conditions, accelerating Europe's progress towards aircraft-like access to space. Invictus is expected to create hundreds of highly skilled jobs in the final UK region, attract inward investment, and anchor advanced aerospace capability. And we will, of course, let you know when a final site is selected. And that is it for today's intelligence briefing, my friends. As always, you can find more about all of the stories that I've mentioned for you today in our show notes. It's in your podcast app and on our website, space.n2k.com. Hi there. Whether you have been listening to T- from the start or whether this is your first episode tuning in, I wanted to thank you for listening. If you like what we're doing here at T-, your support will help us grow and bring you more of the insights and guest interviews that you enjoy. So if you could take a moment and leave us a 5-star rating and short review in whatever podcast app you are using, I would appreciate it so much. Tell us about how much you learn from Greg Gillinger's monthly space intelligence reports, piercing a bit of the veil about what China's space program is up to. It's fascinating, isn't it? Yeah, let us know. It really does help. And I wouldn't be much of a podcast host if I didn't drop an obligatory like and subscribe now and then after all, so please do, and thank you.
At Thales, they secure what matters most. The most trusted companies and organizations utilize Thales cybersecurity products to protect critical applications, sensitive data, and identities anywhere at scale. Through their innovative services and integrated platforms, Thales provides customers a greater visibility of risks, the ability to defend against cyber threats, close compliance gaps, and deliver trusted digital experiences for billions of consumers every day. That's Thales, Thales. Learn more at cpl.thalesgroup.com.
I recently caught up with Greg Gillinger, SVP for Strategy and Development at Integrity ISR, to find out the latest news on what's going on in orbit.
A couple of stories I wanted to dive into for this month, and they both relate to China. And they're both actually fairly recent, over the last week and a half or so. So the first one was a launch of a TJS-21 satellite. This happened on November 21st, so just a few days ago. It's going to what we call a highly elliptical orbit, or HEO orbit, we believe, right? So it's still in some sort of geosynchronous transfer orbit, we believe, but the inclination that its current trajectory kind of points to it going to HEO, which is significantly different than a geostationary orbit. So for some of your listeners that may not be familiar with all of the different types of orbits that we have, right? So geosynchronous orbit is out about 36,000 kilometers above the equator and has an orbital period of roughly 24 hours. So that's what synchronizes it with the Earth. So geosynchronous, right? So one orbit per day. So that keeps that satellite over kind of the same point of the Earth. Contrast that with a highly eccentric orbit, or highly elliptical orbit, or HEO is what we call it. You may also hear the term Molnaya orbit. The Russians first started using this type of orbit in the 60s. I'd like to say they kind of discovered it, but it's really a natural phenomenon that's been around forever. They were the first ones to actually use it, and they named it the Molnaya orbit. And it's an interesting one. So if you think back to where Russia is on the globe, I know we're talking about a Chinese satellite, but just by the way of background, providing communications or missile warning over the northern hemisphere is important for a nation like Russia that has, much of its landmass is in the northern latitudes, right? And very difficult to provide communication support to a lot of these northern latitudes just because of the nature of the shape of the Earth, and the Earth kind of blocks connectivity with some of your geosynchronous satellites, right? So if you're able to have a satellite in an orbit with an extremely high apogee, think like 36 to 40,000 kilometers above the Earth, and then you incline it at about 63.5 degrees, you'll have a long loiter time over the northern hemisphere and a very short loiter time over the southern hemisphere. So we get into the orbital mechanics lingo, right? So apogee is over the northern hemisphere, and perigee is over the southern hemisphere. Right? And I mentioned that you use an inclination that's very specific. So a 63.5 degrees inclination, or 116.5 degrees inclination. There's this weird phenomenon that happens in that you basically the shape of the Earth and what's called the J2 effect kind of nulls out any sort of movement of your perigee location. Your argument of perigee stays in the fifth spot, which isn't the case for a lot of different orbits where your point of perigee is actually continuously moving from day to day. At these inclinations, because of the shape of the Earth, you maintain that argument of perigee over the same spot of the Earth in the southern hemisphere. So what this does, it allows you basically 12 hours worth of loiter time as you get up to apogee. Your spacecraft's moving slower relative to the Earth. So it gives you really 12 hours of coverage per satellite over that northern hemisphere. So it's really good then for providing communication support and those sorts of things.
I had to Google it while you were talking about it also because I'm very visual, admittedly. But as you were describing it, it's a huge swing, just like a huge swing out, and then a really close pass under. Is sort of
think of eccentricities measured on a scale from 0 to just a little bit less than 1. 0 being a perfect circle, 9 being an extremely narrow oval. The eccentricity for these orbits is around 0.7 or so. Very, very elongated as you're seeing on Google there. So why do I bring this up? So TGS-21 looks like it's heading out to one of these Molniya orbits, right? And China only has, with TGS-21, now this will be the 4th satellite that they have in HEO. The first one that they launched in the HEO is a test satellite that they call Xi'an 1001, which was launched in 2021. And then in 2022, I believe they launched Xi'an 1002. And then just last year, they launched another TJS satellite, TJS-13, into these highly elliptical orbits. And what we saw with those three is very interesting in that they really synchronized the orbit of TJS-13 and the first Xi'an satellite. So both of those satellites, they're not coplanar. They're offset from one another, but they're both loitering over the northern hemisphere at about the same time. And then they're basically, exactly out of phase with the remaining Xi'an satellite, Xi'an 1002, so that as they're descending, Xi'an 1002 is rising. So between the three of them, you have really 24/7 coverage of that northern hemisphere. And so with TGS-21, what we're looking for now is to see if they do the same thing that they did with TGS-13. Will they synchronize TGS-21's orbit with Xi'an 1002 so that both of those are now over the northern hemisphere at the same time? And we don't know for sure what the missions are for these. If they are for some sort of missile warning, right, which would be important to China. China doesn't have a whole lot of landmass that's in the higher latitudes. Actually, I don't think it has any. But they are concerned about missiles perhaps coming over the polar regions. And having satellites in these orbits would be extremely helpful for that. And if you're able to have two sensors looking at the same place on Earth, it improves your ability to conduct that missile warning mission. Right? It improves your accuracy in terms of gauging what azimuth the ballistic missile might be on, the trajectory it might be on, and it also helps to increase your confidence level. If you're seeing the same thing from different satellites, then you're more confident in what that might be telling you, which for that mission, as you can imagine, is extraordinarily important. So in the past, for Chinese satellites to get out to HEO is a couple of weeks or so in terms of maneuvering. So we'll be watching this. Like I said, it just launched a few days ago on November 21st. So we'll be watching here over the next several days, maybe a couple of weeks, to see if it actually does fall into that pattern or not. So that's one that caught my eye and something we've been kind of waiting on for quite some time, just because after TGS-13 launched and you had two satellites in that one pattern, it would only make sense to add a fourth satellite to have dual satellites providing that coverage 24/7. So we'll see that actually happen. There were two other launches that were of interest in the last couple of weeks, and they're both of the test and experiment variety. So China launched three satellites that are part of the Xi'an 32 formation, and they also launched three satellites that are part of the Shijian formation, right? So they all went to low Earth orbit. They've got both types of satellites in multiple orbital regimes. What was particularly interesting about these two launches is I noticed that the satellites all went into orbital planes that are very popular with either Starlink or Kuiper or both. So you choose the plane that you put your satellites in that's not something that happens by accident. That is definitely a planned choice. because it's very difficult and expensive to change. Actually, in LEO, it's almost impossible to change. It's heavy
Pretty
fuel.
much impossible. Yep.
So the fact that they have them orbiting now with Starlink and Kuiper satellites is interesting. In the past, China has stated that, hey, Starlink we consider to be kind of a threat to us, and we want to be able to figure out ways that we can counteract it. So having these test satellites go up and be co-planar with these commercial proliferated LEO constellations is certainly something to keep an eye on.
We'll be right back.
What's your 2 a.m. security worry? Is it, do I have the right controls in place? Maybe, are my vendors secure? Or the one that really keeps you up at night, how do I get out from under these old tools and manual processes? That's where Vanta comes in. Vanta automates the manual work so you can stop sweating over spreadsheets, chasing audit evidence, and filling out endless questionnaires. Their trust management platform continuously monitors your systems, centralizes your data, and simplifies your security at scale. And it fits right into your workflows, using AI to streamline evidence collection, flag risks, and keep your program audit ready, all the time. With Vanta, you get everything you need to move faster, scale confidently, and finally, get back to sleep. Get started at vanta.com/cyber. That's VANTA.com/cyber.
Welcome back. NASA's Mars-bound Escapade mission just added a little cosmic flair to its to-do list. Taking selfies. Yes, even spacecraft headed for the red planet do need a good profile pic. Relatable. The twin Escapade probes, named Blue and Gold, captured their first images using their star tracking cameras, giving the mission teams a charming glimpse of each spacecraft's solar panels and bus as they cruise towards the red planet. It's part engineering check, part morale boost, and part NASA does Instagram, but 50 million miles from home. So what makes this especially cool is what Escapade will do once it gets to where it's going. The mission's twin orbiters are supposed to help map Mars's magnetosphere in stereo, helping us better understand how energy and charged particles move between the sun, the Martian atmosphere, and space. And that's the kind of science that improves long-term planning for communications, navigation, and even, one day, crewed systems on and around Mars. Understanding that space weather environment is, as you might imagine, critical for future digital infrastructure far from Earth. And while these early selfies from Escapade are not going to win any photography awards, I mean, you can go take a look at them. We'll link them for you in our show notes. They do tell the teams back home that everything is on track. The power systems are stable, attitude control looks great, and both spacecraft are healthy as they continue their multi-month trek across the stars. So maybe next time you snap a selfie, remember that you are participating in a proud tradition shared by explorers from Earth all the way to Mars. And that is T-Minus, brought to you by N2K Cyberwire. We'd love to know what you think of our podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing space industry. If you like this show, please share a rating and review in your podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to space@n2k.com. We are proud that N2K Cyberwire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K helps space and cybersecurity professionals grow, learn, and stay informed. As the nexus for discovery and connection, we bring you the people, the technology, and the ideas shaping the future of secure innovation. Learn how at n2k.com. N2K's senior producer is Alice Carruth. Our producer is Liz Stokes. We are mixed by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester, with original music by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilpie is our publisher. and I am your host, Maria Varmazis. Thank you for listening. We'll see you tomorrow.
T-minus.
Most environments trust far more than they should, and attackers know it. ThreatLocker solves that by enforcing default deny at the point of execution. With ThreatLocker Allow listing, you stop unknown executables cold. With ring fencing, you control how trusted applications behave. And with ThreatLocker DAC, Defense Against Configurations, you get real assurance that your environment is free of misconfigurations and clear visibility into whether you meet compliance standards. ThreatLocker is the simplest way to enforce zero-trust principles without the operational pain. It's powerful protection that gives CISOs real visibility, real control, and real peace of mind. ThreatLocker makes zero-trust attainable, even for small security teams. See why thousands of organizations choose ThreatLocker to minimize alert fatigue, stop ransomware at the source, and regain control over their environments. Schedule your demo at threatlocker.com/N2K today.